May the 4th be with you. This episode, Star Wars for the NES. Star Wars for the NES. Starting out, it tries to put its own spin on the classic entry, but this is more top-down than scrolling back. The title's fading in the background, and then the crawl coming from behind. For the most part, it is word for word. Now, you'll forgive me if I'm a little on the, well, actually not quite on the quiet side, because I'll be watching the words scroll down instead of scrolling back. But for the most part, it's the same words, same scrolling that opens with the movie. And for the most part, it opens the same way. The Star Destroyer coming in and, well, down to Tatooine. But I decided to hold off a bit because this is also a sneak preview of further levels. This is, you're going through the asteroid field of Alderaan. Title screen again. For the most part, this is a platformer, but you do get some alternative levels. You do have to fly through asteroids to navigate, which ironically would be the remains of Alderaan. And here we are with the NES version of the opening scene. The blockade runner, the Tentative 4, I believe it was known as in the past. And then the escape pod going down to Tatooine. The Star Destroyer that's being escaped is the Devastator. And they are skipping a few bits here. Here's 3PO saying, "Not my fault, sir. Please don't deactivate me. Don't go. It's faulty malfunctioning. Babbling on about his mission." Starting off, you're going into the land speeder, going into different areas. Finding out through caverns. Like I said, this is, for the most part, this is what you'll be getting. You'll be going through platformers, through either corridors or caves. Yeah, and this is like asteroid, this is like acid fungus. You gotta watch out or you'll lose a health. You'll find most of them are like this, and for the most part, I found this very hard to get through. This, for the most part, it kind of reminds me of Metroid. Trying to go through these corridors, trying to get to a main boss in the end so that you can advance. Also, don't touch the floor on this. You gotta stay on the platforms. First level, you do make it to an exit eventually. Make it out to the land speeder. Try to find yourself your next destination. And watch out for your life bar going into these caverns. You also have to be on the lookout for other adversaries like that, because your health bar will still apply even when you're in the land speeder. You also have 3 lives to work with. You have a lot of other adversaries as well, like a Bantho, Stormtroop, Sand People. Also a few laser turrets here and there. You're going through a lot of enemies, other caves, trying to locate the Sandcrawler. I'd say find R2 and even Obi-Wan. Another cave here. Yeah, I mean, not all of these will be caves. Some of them will be like be corridors. Yeah, and you also have other enemies to look through as you're trying to find another exit. When you lose, it lets you know how far you've gone, and I'll tell you flat out, I don't go very far, but it does give you 10 continues to at least try. And let's see. In this, you wind up fighting as Luke, Han, and Leia. Han becomes a playable character later on, as does Leia later on. You also have Obi-Wan, 3PO, and R2. They can be selected, but from what I can gather, they're not playable. And don't touch the ground. For some reason, the ground, you just lose your energy and you die. Going through the corridor again, well, actually the cave, and a new kind of type of enemy. Watch yourself around them. And also watch your life bar in the end, because that can go pretty quick. And make sure, yeah. Final percent completion, 3%. This does monitor your progress. And also, 10 continues. Gonna continue? Well, yeah, it will. That said, for the most part, this is a platformer. You do go through some caves, as well as corridors and cargo bays and what have you. And also be careful. This cave might not be the best suited. I think there's the exit to it, or got out of it. And watch out for the land speeder, because you run across one of the enemies out there. You run into banthas. You run across turrets, probes. You take damage out there. It also affects your health here. Eventually, you do find your way to other places, most notably the sand crawler, for one. And there are others. I mean, you'll be going through, I'd say, Mos Eisley a bit. You'll also be going through the Death Star. Also, as I mentioned, you have asteroid navigation through the Alderaan, through the planet Alderaan. And also a TIE fighter battle when you're trying to escape the Death Star. In this game, there's no scene of Obi-Wan and Vader fighting. It was omitted, probably. Even though it was relevant to the movie, it's apparently not relevant to the gameplay. As I mentioned before, you can play as Luke and eventually Han and then Leia. But while Obi-Wan, 3PO, and R2 can be selected, they are seemingly not playable characters. You'll get some comments from Obi-Wan and 3PO, but I think you get a schematic diagram if you try to select R2. For the most part, this is looking for quests. This is a quest game. You're trying to locate boss characters for the most part. This is reminiscent of Metroid, as you're going through a whole bunch of corridors trying to locate the Mother Brain. Also, watch out for the Jawas or whatever enemy that crosses your path. You get the silver orbs. That should boost up your health quite a bit. And eventually, you do get a chance to blow up the Death Star, which has always been a cornerstone to a lot of Star Wars games. Blowing up the Death Star. This game just requires a lot of time and a lot of patience, especially getting off of this main level. Yes, you'll have your life bar. Yes, you'll have force power as it comes to you. But you also have to know where you're going and make sure you use any abilities you acquire wisely. Blaster, lightsaber, or anything for that matter. You play as Luke, Han, and Leia. Obi-Wan, R2, and 3PO, not playable. But it more or less plays along the lines of the movie, despite a few liberties here and there. And the end result of a Star Wars game, usually the same, at least in the earlier days. Blow up the Death Star. This time, up next, Empire Strikes Back for the NES through JVC. The Empire Strikes Back, also by JVC, by Lucasfilm Games, and like the previous game, it opens much like the movie does. Actually, it opens more like the previous game does. But it has the Empire Strikes Back logo instead of the regular Star Wars logo. However, the crawl also operates the same way, but instead of the gold lettering, it has a blue title and red as it scrolls up instead of back. So if you'll forgive me, let the words roll by. This is across the galaxy. Invading the dreaded Imperial Starfleet, a group of freedom fighters led by Luke Skywalker has established a new secret base on the remote ice world of Hoth. Evil Lord Darth Vader, obsessed with finding young Skywalker, has dispatched thousands of remote probes into the far reaches of space. And of course, we get the regular entry. Star Destroyer flying through space, sending probe droids to multiple locations. And of course, one of them landing in your area. Yep, there's the meteorite. And I'm also going to admit right here, I did not get very far. I mean, you're playing as Luke Skywalker throughout this entire game. You also have commentary from Han, commentary from Obi-Wan, Leia, many other characters, depending on the circumstance. You're blasting enemies for the most part. This one, you're blasting probe droids, but you have to get, in this one, you have to get to a boss at the end. Again, this is very much like Metroid, quest game going through endless corridors, but you also have other games going through. I'd say 60% of this is a platformer, but you also have other levels as well. Luke, the lightsaber is the weapon of a Jedi. You get health and force power pickups. Right now I don't have any force power, as well as you're also going through, probably some baby wampas. And pick up the health when you beat them. But you also can find yourself in a very tricky spot. Like here, for instance. I mean, there's a health up in there, but I don't have a way to reach it. There are some blocks you can shoot through to get to these other probe droid adversaries. But yeah, trying to get off your Tauntaun. Yeah, the Tauntaun's in your way. Alright, got the health. Yeah, you come across the Fs, you pick up certain force powers along the way. Also, don't touch the ground if you can help it, or in this case, the water. Your health will go quick, much like in the first Star Wars game. And when you lose, Vader gives his commentary. And I find himself giving me this quite a lot. Of course, you have your continues. This one, you do not have as many. You'll have 6. And then you're starting back over again where you left off. You'll eventually get the chance to acquire force powers. Right now, I don't have any. So I have to get through things the hard way. You come across force powers through an F power-up. And you gather as much of those as you can and make sure your F bar, which chronicles the force, is up to par. You do come across other levels, most notably an AT-AT bar, which is reminiscent of the Parker Brothers Star Wars game. But you also tend to move around like, perhaps you're not as strong as the Emperor thought. Tell me about it. You also get to move in a way that reminds me of Alien Invaders for the Odyssey 2, where if your bunker was destroyed, you can race around and find yourself another bunker. Of course, also, in that level, you have a blaster where you can blast away sky troopers while you make your way to another speeder. So maybe there's a little bit of Contra thrown into that level as well. You also have other battles as well, like an aerial dogfight with TIE fighters and cloud cars. You also have to rescue Han Solo from Slave One in an aerial dogfight. And it's also a battle that you can succeed in. apparently he gets rid of the carbonite block, at least in this game. And there's also, when you get to Dagobah, and I believe also through Bespin at least, you have a little bit of a vine, like you're swinging from the vine, much like Pitfall for Activision. This game requires a lot of patience and time commitment, as Vader will let you know, and you only have 6 continues to work with. I also saw imagery of Vader with a blaster, and somehow that did not seem to work with the character. As I said, these games do take some liberties, even though they do follow the general story. And yeah, this game really does require a lot of commitment and a lot of skill. You basically would have to forego everything else just to master these games. There was never a Return of the Jedi made for this line. It only went with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Like Star Wars, Empire takes certain liberties and also takes from other games as well. Although mostly a platformer along the veins of Metroid, you do have a few other games that make pop-ups here and there. And it does take 1 or 2 liberties for the source material as well. There was never a Return of the Jedi game made along this line. But that didn't matter, because through our love, not just of Star Wars, but of science fiction, a force was really starting to be reckoned with around the 80s and 90s. That force? Fandom. And it grew from people loving properties and materials, books, movies, comics, to something a whole lot more. Something where the imagination was allowed to soar and fly, even creatively. Fandom. There have been many definitions to describe it. It's been said to be the haven for the dreamer, the idealist, sense of community, place for the misfit. We're described as imaginative, creative, amazed by new worlds. And other times we're also seen as downtrodden, hopeful, wondrous. Definitely an appeal to the alien. And also different. Definitely different. However, we have also been called idiot, moron, with the term clueless also added to that. Also called man-baby, an R word, which I won't get to. Sometimes we've even been referred to as entitled, rejects. We're known to complain if something's not exactly right. And of course the classics, nerd, dork, and loser. We've definitely taken quite a few slings and arrows over the years. Slings like, get a life, I'm sad you're alive, deal with it. And at the end of the day, this is my attitude towards it. We can create beautiful works, stories, costumes, cars, films. We can be part of a broader community. We can also be very unforgiving and come down on people and properties if we don't believe they are done exactly right. Most notably, Jake Lloyd in The Phantom Menace Ahmed Best in The Phantom Menace, and Kelly Marie Tran in The Last Jedi. A lot of people give political reasons as for why the prequels and sequels took the directions they did. I think the main reason for the bellyaching among fans was because creatively, the Star Wars property did not go the direction they wanted, and their favorite heroic character was regulated to the ensemble and was no longer the star. In a period of frustration, I believe, George Lucas decided to sell his property to Disney. At first, fans were receptive to this, hoping that Star Wars would go the direction they preferred, and the focus would no longer be on Anakin Skywalker, as George had directed it towards, and have Luke Skywalker be center stage and take the reins back. That did not happen, as The Last Jedi was evident. I have my own nitpicks about The Last Jedi, but for me, the nitpicks are pretty much slow pacing, a choppy middle, and the planet Canto Bight reminded me a little too much of Monte Carlo, a place I'd seen in movies beforehand. Why would I want to watch a place that I had seen somewhere else before? If these fans groups had their way, Luke Skywalker would have been seen as an invincible character who would have gone after the First Order with his laser sword, and then had gone after Snoke in the third film and going out in a blaze of glory. If I were to fashion a guess, I would say the reason why they did not go with that direction was because they probably saw that direction as too predictable. And I heard somewhere that director Rian Johnson did not like doing predictable films. And say what you want about The Last Jedi, and many of you have, one thing it definitely was not, was predictable. This really gives a two-sided image to fandom, as we can have one another's backs for 1 minute, and then knives out for another. We can be the biggest and greatest community of all time, and then be seen as small and insignificant and doesn't matter the next. We can be a very relentless bunch, but are we relentless for the common good, or are we just out for our own egos as well? So how did all this come about? Where did it start? Well, there's always been a big three: Star Trek, Doctor Who, to a certain point, and Star Wars, which is likely credited to be the big kickstart of all when it comes to fandom. There's always been an interest in Star Trek ever since it went off the air around 1969. It had a little bit of a revival around the 70s with the animated series, and tried to get a new series through a network, but really came to light when it came through the motion picture scene. The success of Star Wars helped elevate Star Trek, and Doctor Who was in the corner of the PBS network. People were scrambling to find their new science fiction properties, and in that scrambling, Universal found this one, which aired on ABC. Originally titled Adam's Ark, was later changed to Battlestar Galactica. Doctor Who would be in PBS's corner for American audiences. Battlestar would be canceled after 1 year due to budgetary reasons on behalf of ABC. Star Trek would thrive throughout the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Star Trek would also bring fans to the dance with script submissions and stories in fan anthology works. Star Wars would thrive through its original trilogy, original film, second film The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, as well as its comic mediums throughout the time, as well as its toy line. It would later continue its prominence through a universe called the Expanded Universe, which told stories of the original classic Star Wars heroes. The Expanded Universe, or the EU for short, would continue to promote Star Wars at least until the prequels, when George Lucas decided he wanted to change his focus on lead characters from his original Luke Skywalker to the father Anakin Skywalker. George Lucas said one time he always wanted to be shown something wondrous. And for all intents and purposes, I believe he has, through his film works and through this expanded universe. No, the expanded universe, he had little to no input in. He would just approve an idea or pass it on and just go on from there. But he was not the only one who believed that something wondrous needed to be shown. Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller fame also had a similar mindset. In a documentary on video gaming, Penn Jillette said, "Show people something wonderful, show people something amazing, and you've got them hooked." I believe those words to be very true. Another wondrous property was the video game film Tron, a Disney property that decided to show the world on the other side of the computer gaming screen. While not a financial success at the time, it did cement itself into people's imaginations and inspires people to this day. Battlestar Galactica sought to do the same, thanks to the efforts of series creator Richard Hatch. And we almost succeeded, however, something happened. In the episode War of the Gods, the saying, "As you are now, we once were. As we are now, you may become," comes to mind. Battlestar was said to be something of a smaller fandom compared to the big three of Star Trek, Doctor Who, and Star Wars. But what people tended to forget is that once upon a time, these three properties were like Battlestar at one time. They were once considered smaller properties. They didn't become big overnight. And there are a lot of us that wanted that same chance to become what they became from what we once were, or are, as the case may be. And while fans may be part of a main fandom, there are also additional fandoms they are a part of. Another term could be seen as supporting fandoms, properties that we believe could be the next Star Trek or Star Wars. Star Trek mostly. Fans were always on the lookout for a new Trek and sought to use whatever power we had to make it happen until we did not have that power anymore. When power is offered, we take the offer, no matter where we stand, because we believe the power is best in our hands than the executives and the apparent artists that have it now. But do we also take the responsibility that goes with it? Regardless, when we believe that power has been lost and reason has been abandoned, the temptation of anger is waiting. I'll cover fan anger in a later video, as well as fan wishes versus artistic vision. One person told me that as a fan, I was looking at through properties and fandom through the eyes of a customer. I agree with that in part. However, I think there's a little more to being a fan than just being a customer. In my opinion, I believe the fan is 1 part customer, 1 part patron, and 1 part investor. We are basically asked to invest our time, our energy into a property, and we also expect a return on that investment. And we get disappointed if we do not believe the investment goes our way. Battlestar would be reimagined against the wishes of the fan community. We would also be attacked by trolls and berated by critics, telling us we were small, insignificant, and didn't matter. And trolls telling us we deserve to be screwed. When you're told that, I think one has a right to be angry, don't you? But when I compare the reimagining of Battlestar Galactica versus the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, I can't help but feel that those Star Wars fans got off light compared to the Battlestar fans. At the end of the day, they were just mad Luke wasn't picking up his laser sword and going after the First Order. They also wanted the EU Expanded Universe canonized, and they also had the impression that the story could not go beyond the core group of characters of Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia Organa. Does this mean Star Trek does not go beyond Kirk, Spock, and McCoy? While it is true there may have been several Star Trek series, they were all united by one unifying theme: Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future. Each episode was a take on that vision in some way, shape, or form. When one takes a look at Star Wars, an argument could be made that the unifier to that film series is the galaxy far, far away. Both Star Wars and Star Trek sought to expand their properties beyond their core groups of characters. Though I do think the term midichlorians was a little too Rick Berman on George Lucas's part. Battlestar had no unifier, at least none that I could detect. But I believe a lot of us were left with an impression that fandom was no longer welcome to the dance. The artists were out for themselves and their visions, if not egos, and the executives were just out for their money. And bottom line, for all intents and purposes, we might as well have been told to get back in our lanes. In your heart, you feel like you are supporting a star player, a player you really want to do well. But the coaches in Hollywood just keep you on the bench. You keep screaming, "Send them in, coach, send them in, coach, they can play, they can play." And just when you think you've got your chance to play, they send someone else wearing your number and your jersey, and you are still left sitting on the bench. And there are those that never want you to get off it. At the end of the day, fandom is a wonderful thing, I believe. We can be very imaginative and very creative. And in some ways, we've even been preservers in a way. Back in the 60s, there were fans that made Super 8 recordings using Super 8 cameras to record images of Doctor Who off the TV screens and recording audio tracks to support those video adventures. When the BBC ordered those original prints destroyed, fans came to the rescue with the audio tracks and their Super 8 recordings. And to this day, those audio tracks have been used to bring about new Doctor Who audios that and animated episodes restored. Some of the Super 8 footage has been used for transitional footage in making use of video recreation using still imagery also superseded with those fan audio tracks. But I want to pose one last question. If the Star Trek or Star Wars fans were treated like the Battlestar Galactica fans were, and told that they were just small, insignificant, and didn't matter, and that it was okay to toss them aside for bigger crowds, would we have the Star Trek fandom we do today? Or even the Star Wars fandom, for that matter? Would any fandoms come about in this day and age if we were told that the audiences at the end of the day didn't matter? What then? When I first came across the Star Wars fandom, it was imaginative. It was wondrous. Stories that came from the fans that loved it. Fan stories, fan films, making fan props. It was the most imaginative, the most inspired fandom ever. And inspired many other fandoms with it. Star Trek, Doctor Who, even Battlestar. But as time went on, worse voices began to be heard and soon started dominating the conversation. I said in the video to groups like the Fandom Menace, cry me a river. And basically what I meant by that is those fans got off light when they bellyache about The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker. Star Wars still had connections that I could make, that I could enjoy the film. It still had the galaxy far, far away. It still had Luke Skywalker with Mark Hamill playing it, just not the way they wanted him played. Han Solo was there, albeit in a separate movie. Leia was also there, and again, met her in separately. There's complaints that they did not end up together. Well, I mean, together, saving the galaxy one last time as the three intergalactic musketeers. Each one kind of had a Captain Kirk death in that they seemed to end alone or die alone. Although Luke and Leia seem to be together in the Force, and well, maybe Han's there as well. And people would complain about the sequels, and they may have their gripes about it, but for me, the reimagining is the worst. Bar none. Aside from the premise and the name, and few character names slapped onto characters I didn't recognize, and a ship named Galactica, there was nothing for me to get behind, and there was nothing for me to root for. And it kind of hurt that Star Wars fans and other fandoms didn't really have our back. They just went to the Star Wars ripoff argument just so they could run the fandom down. And for those wondering why I did not cover that argument this time, as I mentioned in an earlier video, wait till Christmas, I'll have something then. Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who, and I'd probably say the new kid on the block, the MCU, have become giants in their time and in their age, and still are today. And I think a lot of those fans must have forgotten what it was like to be the little guy once upon a time, as we saw the Battlestar fandom be. As I said in War of the Gods, as you are now, we once were. As we are now, you may become. We just wanted that shot to become what you are now. Because as you are now, we once were. And if there was a choice between Bonnie Hammer and Kathleen Kennedy, and I had to pick which one to run a project, I'd pick Kathleen Kennedy hands down. Because she understands the genre, she understands wonder, she understands what it's like to be amazed. And for those looking to go political, I'm really not looking to get into smoke screens and stink bombs. The real issues for me are creative. But creative complaints seem to not make that much of a stink. So they go with a political argument. I've mentioned the pros and cons of fandom in this video. There's another game that I could have covered that would be a reflection of the EU. I will get to that game at a later time, and I'm sure a lot of fans out there would know what that is. But before I make some final thoughts, there's one last game I want to cover. While JVC, through Lucasfilm Games, did not release a Return of the Jedi video game, there was a third Star Wars game released for Nintendo. Not the NES, but the Famicom. This is kind of a curiosity, especially as it came from NAMCO and was a Famicom exclusive. This was only made in Japan, but it seems to capture the entrance of Star Wars pretty well. You have the logo, but also it tends to crawl much like the JVC games does as well. Episode 4, A New Hope, is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal plans, the Empire's weapon, the Death Star, and you know the rest of it. It does scroll by pretty fast. You can't really enjoy it all that much, so you're pretty much stuck with skimming. And you're also greeted again to the scene of the Tantive 4 being chased by the Devastator. Well, actually it looks a little crisper, I think. And the Devastator moves a little more forebodingly. It does show a bit of gameplay. The opening does, until you start out with it. Part of this will show you enemies on Tatooine. There's your lightsaber. And yes, you're also stuck with one-hit detection. You'll also be facing TIE fighters eventually. You have other games part of this as well, but also for the most part it is a platformer. You'll also have your top-down shooter, which is the Death Star Trench, and you're racing through several sections to get to the thermal exhaust port to destroy the Death Star. Like many Star Wars games, your end goal will be to destroy the Death Star. You also start off with your selection, Novice Mission or Pro Mission. I've pretty much gone with Novice. And you're opening up the Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, You're My Only Hope. Luke looking at the screen at the image of Leia, R2 showing, and he's like, yep, let's go. Jawas are apparently carrying off R2, and they stole him from Luke's hut. Oh, guess they want him back. But here is the gameplay starting out. You are going through Tatooine, taking down these, well, I don't know what. I mean, they're too small for sand people, and also, you got eagles flying. Watch out for the holes. Now that is a Tusken Raider, I believe, sand person. And, yep, you're collecting these crystals, although I'm not sure why. They might unlock force powers, as eventually you do come across some force abilities in this game, much like you do in The Empire Strikes Back from JVC. also watch out for those holes that pop up. You can't go on them, but apparently your enemies can. And yeah, that's what gets me the most about this game. One-hit detection. And also you're going through the sand crawler. You will have other levels as well. They get harder as they progress. And apparently you've also got a stormtrooper visiting you. So you'll come across other enemies as well. There's also blocks you can cut through. And yeah, who let the bird in? And watch out for that. I don't know. And yeah, Vader is breathing at the end. Well, he's not giving you his commentary. He's just breathing, telling you that you lost. The killer of this game for me is really the one-hit detection. But you are given your lightsaber immediately. And the levels do get harder as you progress. You also have a shooter in some areas. You will get a blaster and force powers through the quests. And through this level, if you make it through, you do get to race through a land speeder to get from one place to another. Ironically enough, you find yourself driving the land speeder into a cantina. It's kind of reminiscent of someone driving their, well, let's say a Dodge Charger straight through into the bar and wondering, can I have some service? You also come across a Mario water level with horizontal action. At least it reminds me of Super Mario Brothers as you're swimming through it. And you're also going through several quests in it. You also have to rescue Chewie. You have to rescue Han. You have to rescue Leia. And then you also get through the trench battle. There's also a bit of something interesting close to the end. Let me skip ahead and let me show you. Yeah, you're facing Darth Vader this soon? Well, not exactly. Yeah, you have your lightsabers drawn, and then you find this happens. Now, one moment that really sticks out to me in this game is this. The Angry Video Game Nerd touched upon this, but here you are facing Vader, and this quick, and there it is. You're face to face with a giant scorpion. And I'm left wondering if Padme knew what she was getting into when she met him. Are you an angel? Because I'm a giant scorpion. Well, not completely. I mean, he's also a bat and a snow beast, but you also get to beat Darth Vader himself later on. And when you do that, he just tends to disappear in a flash of light. Maybe it might be a good idea if George Lucas didn't come across this game earlier on. He might have some ideas from it. And like with all other Star Wars games, you do blow up the Death Star at the end. Surprisingly enough, Luke gets a medal and Chewie gets a medal, but Han doesn't. So there's a little twist right there. For the most part, this game is a fun little curiosity. It does follow the movie in its own way. And yeah, it does deviate here and there a time or two. The Vader as a giant scorpion thing, it just remains a fun gag to me. And there comes a point where you will get powers along the way, but the one-hit detection just... that is something you have to work through and get past. You like the JVC games, you will be going at this multiple times, trying to get polished and practiced at it. Know where the ins and outs are, know where the ups and downs are, know where the hidden assets and treasures would be. If you've got the time, if you've got the patience, if you've got the tolerance for all three of these games, they would be fun plays. But it requires a lot out of the player to get through and master these games. And wrapping up this May the 4th be with you. This video with my comments probably has offended. I can't help that. I gave my views and I'm being honest about it. That being said, well, I think a lot of fans also noticed I had Katie Sackhoff in this picture in this, and that's probably another reason that, well, fans will probably not be too happy with me right now. Well, for anyone that I might have offended, I better get going. There's a Babylon 5 love bat with my name on it.
I love you. I forgive you. 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 I love you. I forgive you.
Don't forget to leave a like and click below to subscribe to the Turret Views and Reviews YouTube channel.